A long list of products could suddenly become much pricier. How could this all change our grocery store baskets with all of these tariffs? Which items are on that list?
Sure, Jules. Well, keep in mind, it is going to change what we buy. There's no question about it. Prices are going to go up. So, for example, when we look at produce and we import about $27 billion worth of fruit every year, $20 billion worth of vegetables every year, 2.7 billion bananas every year. So, when we look at these tariffs, and especially on bananas, because there are tariffs on Guatemala, Ecuador, Costa Rica, that's going to be more expensive, and in some cases, even shortages. We import about $18 billion worth of beverages every year. So while the numbers that we're hearing from the administration says, oh, grocery prices might go up, 1.5% to 2%, on average, that's true. But when we look at these specific categories of imports, it's going to be a lot higher.
What is the advice to consumers? Do we stock up? Do we just wait and see? What's your advice?
I think we do stock up, but it depends on what the products are. So, for example, you don't want to stock up on produce because it has a short shelf life. Keep in mind, it's not just the tariff, but what happens is the tariff gets passed on from the exporter to the distributor to the retailer. So everybody adds a little bit more to it. So when we hear this 10%, that could easily translate to 15 or 20%. Also, you're going to laugh, but toilet paper and paper towels, just the way we had during the pandemic, they could be at risk because we get a lot of our wood pulp from Canada.
Hello, YouTubers. Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, did you hear the part where he said that even though the tariff may be 10%, let's say, that every time it hits a middleman, that it's going to go up? The reason for that, in my opinion, is something that we've talked about before. It's because we live in a credit-based society. So let's say that tariff on bananas, let's say, starts at 10%. When it gets to the first distributor, that person or that company is going to borrow money to purchase those bananas. And what's attached to borrowing money? Interest. Right? So he's going to have to ramp up that 10% by the interest that he's paying in order so that they can make money and not lose money. When it gets to the second wholesaler or distributor, they're going to have to borrow money to get it from the first, and they're going to have to pay interest on that, etc., 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 until it gets to your shelf. That's how a 10% tariff can increase the price of a product by maybe another 5 to 10%. I want to go over a comprehensive list of things that you may want to consider that maybe you didn't think about stocking up now. Did you hear that gentleman say, hey, you need to stock up on paper towels and toilet paper? And let me tell you what, paper towels, I can't believe how expensive they are. I went to the commissary, and for those of you who don't know what the commissary is, it's like a small supermarket on a military base. A pack of, I think it was 12 rolls of paper towel was like $35. You remember when we used to get those for like 10 bucks, $9? Well, not anymore. And not only is it $35 now, but it's more than likely going to go up from there. So get prepared. Today I'm going to go over with you a comprehensive list from the Health Ranger from Natural News. And this is a list, ladies and gentlemen, from just one of our trading partners, China. Now, it says urgent report, and I consider this to be urgent. Why? Because people don't understand what a leading indicator is, or at least most people don't, which means that these tariffs are a leading indicator that shelves may become empty or that prices may rise sharply or both. So take a look at this list so it can jog your memory, and maybe you can see something there that you were like, oh, wait a minute, I better stock up on this before America runs out of it. People will be shocked when the store shelves are empty because they failed to prepare. And unfortunately, it happens all the time. Look at the past when we've seen food pantries that have lines of cars miles long. Those people failed to prepare. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. Is it getting a little bit too late? I believe that we still have some time before this happens. If it happens at all, let's hope that it doesn't. Below is an exhaustive list of products that are made in China, which I do believe is our largest trade partner. And these items on this list are more than likely to disappear if China stops sending us stuff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the things that we, the United States, rely on are solely made in China and imported to the U.S., including medication, believe it or not. Do you believe, or can you believe really, that the U.S. is the most medicated country in the world? And where do we get most of our medications? From China and India. Go ahead and fact check that, make sure that I'm right. However, even though we import our second largest amount of medicines from India, India gets its raw materials for their medicines from China as well. The first category that we're going to go over includes food, and that's what a lot of people think about when they need to stock up. But there's a lot more things that we take for granted that we just go to a store shelf, pick up, pay for it, and go home with it. China dominates food additives, vitamins, packaging material, a lot of people don't even know that, and agricultural chemicals in widespread use across U.S. agriculture and food production. And these are some of the items to stockpile from that category. Vitamins, ladies and gentlemen, but here they specify vitamin C and B. Canning supplies. Go check out 4Jars. Links in the description, ladies and gentlemen, for a lot of these things that I'm talking about. Dehydrated fruits, garlic powder and other spices, agricultural products, garden products, including natural pesticides, fertilizers, livestock antibiotic, and feed additives. Electronics, computing, and communication. China manufactures over 80% of the world's electronics, including mission-critical components for the internet, computing, and communication. Computer motherboards, RAM processors, hard drives, routers, modems, smartphones, of course, tablets, touch screens, lithium batteries, LED lights and bulbs, walkie-talkies, ham radio components, etc. Medicines and personal care products. Antibiotics, we've talked about that before. Ibuprofen, hydrogen peroxide, generic blood pressure and diabetes medications, toothpaste, shampoos, razors. A lot of our toiletries come from China. Only because we have tariffs doesn't mean that most people who need home repairs will be able to put them off. Home repair, construction, and plumbing. China dominates hardware, power tools, and building materials essential for home repair and survival shelters. I can only imagine what the cost of lumber is going to be this summer, because I do believe that a lot of the lumber, if not most of the lumber that we get, at least here in Alaska, comes from Canada. PVC pipes, fittings, light fixtures, bulbs, nails, screws, bolts, fasteners, hand tools, cordless power tools, silicone sealants, duct tapes, resins, solar panels, and backup power equipment. Automotive, farming, and industrial supplies. China makes critical replacement parts for vehicles, farm equipment, and industry. These are things that we've been taking for granted for a long time. And I don't believe that it's our fault on a personal basis. When we need something, we have to get it. And if it only comes from China, then what are you going to do? Either get it or go without. Oil filters, air filters, brake pads, spark plugs, tractor parts, batteries for cars, trucks, ATVs, motorcycles, bearings, hydraulic hoses, generator parts, and small engine components, etc. Get it now if you think you're going to need it in the future. And of course, one of the big things that we all know come from China are clothing items, shoes, etc., textiles, clothing, and outdoor gear. China is the world's top clothing manufacturer, meaning Americans will run out of apparel fast. Work boots, heavy winter coats, backpacks, wool blankets, thermal underwear, sewing supplies, thread, and heavy-duty zippers, fishing gear, etc., etc., etc. I believe that we're going to go back to a place and time where we are no longer a throwaway society, but instead try to fix what we have because it needs a component here and there. We've all been through it. Something goes wrong with some kind of electronic equipment that we have. We really can't figure it out. You can't bring it to your corner electronic fixer guy, right? So what do? You throw it away and you just buy a new one. Final warning, act now before it's too late, ladies and gentlemen. China has America by the throat. Now, in some cases, maybe it does. In the pharmaceutical space, let's say, for example. In the tractor parts, let's say as well. It's a lot easier to make some of these things at home in a faster pace than others. And he continues with, if these tariffs don't get resolved, or if China decides to weaponize trade, we are looking at a third world condition within months. I've been saying this for a long time, that eventually, if we keep going down the road that we're going, and I do believe that it's fixable, that America would become a third world country or like a third world country. These are some actions that you should take right now. Identify which China products you need and get them now. Not just China products, but maybe products from Canada. You know, I've been watching a few videos and it looks like Canada's getting pretty hasty towards the United States of America. But I digress. Purchase extra supplies now before prices explode. Because if you remember a couple, 3 years back, I put up a video on how full the shelves were in some supermarkets in Venezuela, but the supermarkets were completely empty. Why? Because 99% of the people just couldn't afford to shop there. Switch to non-China alternatives when possible, as soon as possible. Learn some skills because that doesn't hurt and it usually doesn't cost much. Recycle, reuse, and repurpose existing equipment and parts you already possess. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be serious about this and make sure that you have the things that you need in order for your family to sustain the standard of living that they have now, go ahead and stock up on the things you know you're going to need. You may forget something here or there, but if you stock up extra, you may be able to barter some of those extra things that you got, that you thought about, with someone else that maybe thought about getting some extras of things that maybe you forgot. Stock up now just in case. If tomorrow these tariff wars are over, hallelujah, you have a little bit of extra. And the one thing that you can guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, is that as long as there is inflation, i.e. the printing of money, the borrowing of money from the United States government because they can't get by on the taxes that they collect, is that the prices of life will continue to go up and you will have these things now at the price that you paid for them today. Having said that, I want to say thank you very much to every one of you who joined in today and spent a few minutes of your time with me. I truly do appreciate you. God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.